what I'm doing today is a painting of a rooster. I've done it before, and I just want to go through real quick the steps involved. Got my template laid out on my beeswax, and you can't tell from the video, but I've taken an X-Acto knife and I've went in and I've cut the lines in. You can tell a little bit. So I've cut everything, all the pieces. So now it's basically a puzzle. So I'll pull one piece of the puzzle off, and I'll go to my collection of magazine pages here that I've got the colors I want. And I usually just spread those out on my desk so I don't have to go digging every time I need something new. Sometimes I do it beforehand, and sometimes I do it while I'm working on it. It just depends on my mood. But I'll pull off a piece, go to the magazine page, and cut that same shape with the colors I want, and then I'll place them back in place where that paper was, face down on the beeswax. And I'll continue that until the whole thing is covered in the magazine paper. Okay, I'm back with the collaged piece of the rooster. As you can see, I've taken all the paper that made up the rooster head and replaced it with magazine paper. And the colors I want to transfer face down on the beeswax. I still got to deal with the metal leaf for the fencing. But right now I'm going to go ahead and burnish this in. I think I'm going to go ahead and sand it. That way that part is out of the way. And then I'll pull off these strips where the foil's going to go, or gilding, whatever you want to call it. And then I'll remove the paper. So I'm going to say that's good. I'm going to do a little sanding. And the reason I'm doing the sanding now before I take off that paper is I don't want this dust that I'm sanding to get on the beeswax and keep the gilding from sticking, the metal leaf. These smaller paintings ain't too bad, but when you do larger paintings, all this sanding gets a little tiresome. I'll spray a little water on this cloth and just kind of get some of that dust out of the way. Okay, I got all my areas opened up now. It's just the wax exposed underneath. And this is the gilded leaf metal I'm going to use. Like I said, I've done this before, and this stuff is so light and hard to hold on to. So hopefully this new technique I've got in mind is going to work. So I don't have to get every area. It's kind of cool to have those open spots. Sad thing is I gotta go in and remove all those little squares of paper now in there. I think what I'm gonna do is leave that paper on there, and when I wet this paper to rub it off, that'll come off too, I think. Of course, it'll have a lot more interesting effect once I go in there and I carve out the beeswax in between this gilding. It'll have a little different look. Okay, let's see what happens. I'm gonna have this stuff all over the place. Yeehaw. All right.
Beeswax underneath here is basically holding the ink and that metal leaf. So after rubbing this for a minute, some areas get dry. I have to keep it wet. If I don't, that dry paper will scratch off my ink. So I just kind of keep an eye on it if I feel.
The paper doesn't want to come off some inks, so you have to buff it a little bit harder. Otherwise it'll keep hazing up, which it goes away when I put a sealer on it. I like to get as much off as possible to start with. All right, there's Mr. Rooster. You can see him all right. Turned out pretty cool so far. Putting that full leaf down the way I did just then was much better than the first time I did it. Touch the heat gun to it real quick. Another reason I do the heat gun is to fuse the ink from the magazine into the beeswax. once it's melted into there, it's kind of part of it. It's not on top of it anymore. It's cool to see how some of the inks react different when you put heat to it. Some will curl up, the thicker inks. You gotta be careful doing this too. You'll move things around. Now, how much of that stuff to remove? Where's that one doing? And this is the time to draw into it when it's still warm from the heat gun. I like to take the tool and remove some areas just to get some highlights and add some other textures. Of course, by doing that, I took away all the text that I had purposely put into it. You can kind of see some of it. At least you can see it still in his feathers too, here and there.